everyone. Are you all ready for some scary travel stories? Sorry, y'all. I couldn't resist. It's October, which is the month of Halloween. Now, little known fact about me, Halloween is my absolutely favorite holiday of all time. Just growing up as a kid, I've always kind of liked just the spooky stuff, getting to dress up as like maybe a ghost or a vampire or something like that. And it's something that always kind of sort of stuck with me. It's just something that I just became fascinated about. And then it's definitely segued into my adult life and just traveling the world. And anytime I visit like a historical place or maybe a place that has some haunted history, if there's a ghost tour, whether it be in the form of a walking tour or a bus tour, you better believe that I'm going to be buying myself a ticket. So for this month of Halloween, I thought it would just be really fun to share some of my experiences from my adventures that are more on the spooky side of things. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing this month. So I think it's going to be fun. I know I'm going to have a lot of fun making these episodes for you all. And as you can kind of see, I got my flashlight doing the whole scary stories at the campfire type sort of setting. So so yeah, as you can see, I'm really getting into this for sure. So I got 3 stories that I'm going to be sharing with you this month. For each time, I'm going to be doing my travel reflections segment. And I know there's only going to be 2 actual Mondays that actually fall within October. I think one of these is actually going to carry into November just a little bit, but that's okay. Just going to extend the Halloween spirit just a little bit longer, actually past Halloween Day. So it's all good. Like I said, I think it's just going to be lots of fun. And I think you might actually enjoy some of these stories that I have to share with you all. So like I said, I have 3 different stories that I want to share, and these are going to actually go in chronological order throughout my life. So the story I'm going to be sharing with you today happened back when I was a little bit younger, back when I was, I want to say about like maybe 13 or 14, and then we're going to fast forward a little bit to a story from my Marine Corps days, and we're going to fast forward to my days as a grad student when I was living in the UK to study archaeology. So now for today's story, we're going to go back, like I said, a good ways. I think we're going to probably go back to around the year 2000 when I was maybe about like 14, maybe like 15 years old around the time, somewhere around there. And this is very circa 2002, mind you. So might even been 2001 for all I can remember. The dates are a little bit fuzzy, but the details of the story itself are still pretty vivid in my mind. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to get into today's spooky story. So for this one, we are going back to my hometown in Michigan. Now, I'm from a very small town, very rural community, plenty of farmers, plenty of wide open spaces. I lived on a gravel road, as did much of the members of my community did as well. And so lots of farm fields and a lot of woods that surrounded my property growing up, as well as that of my neighbors just as well too. Now, this took place during the winter time, and I remembered it was during one of our extended holiday vacations, maybe Christmas or New Year's, somewhere around there. And I had 2 friends that were staying over at my place for a sleepover one night. And we thought it would be really fun to do a little of a sneak out of the house and go on a little bit of an adventure. Now, there is this very, very tall communications tower, roughly about a mile and some change away from my house. And we thought it'd be kind of funny to sneak out of the house and do a quote unquote night raid of this tower, just to go to it, just to kind of see it up close. We thought it was kind of cool, and we thought it would just be kind of sort of fun to do some sort of like I said, a night raid, so to speak. And it was actually around this time when I had started forming some sort of interest in the military. So I thought just kind of doing some sort of like, secret ops or something like that would have been kind of fun. So we got ourselves prepared. We got our winter clothes all staged and laid out, so that way when we did decide to sneak out of the house, we could get dressed in our winter clothes without creating too much noise. And we had like some snacks and some water that we kind of had in small backpacks that we were going to take with us. And so my two friends and I, who will remain unnamed throughout the duration of this story, we'll just say Bob and Jim, just for the sake of anonymity. I don't even know if I said that right. All right, so we decided to we got ourselves ready, and we snuck out the basement door to get outside, and then we started making our way towards the tower. Now, to get to the tower, we decided to first trek through this open field that was going to take us to a good stretch of the way to get to the tower. And of course, it was winter. It was cold. Fortunately, the air was kind of still. It wasn't windy at all. And it was actually a really, really clear night outside. And I remember this very, very vividly because the full moon was so bright. It was just so bright that it just lit up the night. And even though we had flashlights with us, we didn't even really need to use them at all because the moon pretty much provided us with all the light that we would need. Not to mention that with all the snow on the ground, it was kind of creating some sort of reflective effect with the moonlight that just kind of gave us, like I said, plenty of light, to actually make this journey without using our flashlights. And on top of that, we kind of made our way pretty good, was that the snow was so compact. And I mean, like, so compact that we could easily walk on it without having to, lighten our steps in any sort of way, because with fear of breaking through the snow, it was literally that dense that we could just walk on it without any worry about breaking through it whatsoever. It was actually kind of really cool. It's not too often that the snow actually compacts to that amount of density to where we were able to do something like that. So it was pretty cool to do it that way. So we get to walk in, and then we start walking across this field, and then all of a sudden we get to this tree line, and the tree line in front of us, it looked very, very formidable. There was a lot of dense vegetation growth, and right away, just to try to get into the woods from there was starting to become a big ordeal. It was kind of hard to try to push all this out of the way so that way we can actually get through. And at this point, it sounded like a fun idea starting off, but now we were just getting cold. And, we really wasn't sure how we were going to get through into this forest, let alone navigate through it. And it still looked like the tower was still quite a ways away. So we ended up making the decision to ultimately turn back and start making our way back to the house. And so we basically just turned around and we started making our way back towards the length of the field to get back to the road, which would eventually take us back to my house. And as we were walking across the field, we stopped because we saw some footprints in the snow. Now, these footprints that were in the snow, they were forming a path that ran perpendicular to ours, and they were going towards a tree line that was on the west side of the field. We were made our way towards the north side of the field. I should have clarified that. We made our way to the north side of the field to a tree line there, and then now we were making our way south, and then we saw a set of footprints in the snow that looked like with whatever had made these footprints had came from the east and were heading towards the west to a tree line towards the west side of the field. Now, of course, those are just very minute details compared to with what I want to talk about next. But there was something a bit unusual about these footprints that we saw in the snow. And upon closer look, what we were kind of seeing with these footprints actually started to freak us out quite a bit. These footprints, they looked humanist in shape, kind of like the shape of a human. However, they were certainly much larger than that of a regular human, and the toes in the snow were pointed, like jagged toes. And whatever created these footprints And, mind you, I'm not like an expert tracker or anything like that, but neither were my two friends. And we both kind of all sort of came to the same conclusion, was that, whatever it was something that was on two legs, and it must have ran across the field, or it must have just been very, very heavy, and or both, because these footprints were just dug right into the snow, the same dense, compact snow that we were able to walk across without breaking through at all, or without even any risk of breaking through, it felt like to us. But whatever this creature was that made these footprints in the snow, it just plowed the snow straight down into the ground and left very, very distinct footprints. And you can even kind of see how some of the snow was kicked up around the footprints itself. So it just probably must have been really heavy, again, and or running, because it clearly just plowed and just stomped the snow right into the ground. And then, but here was the kind of the scary part about these footprints, is that we didn't see them as we were walking across the field to the north side the first time. So whatever it was that made those footprints, it made its way across the field while we had our backs turned to it, and we just missed it. And so we obviously decided that, okay, we better start making our way back to the house, because, whatever this creature is, whatever it is that made these footprints, we obviously want to be as far away from it, as possible. And we kind of started thinking, what was it? What kind of creature makes footprints like that? Like I said, this thing looks like it was on two legs, and I had some semblance of idea of like what a bear footprints were, and these certainly were not bear footprints or any other creature that we can kind of think of, because in this rural part of Michigan where I lived, such creatures, you were hardly around. Like, this was a farming community. We had cows and we had domestic dogs and things like that. We had deer, but not something like this. And then kind of thinking about it a little bit more, I kind of started rattling off, thinking about, all the myths and legends and spooky creatures that I could think of. And I'm like, okay, the full moon is very, very bright. And there's only one creature I can think of from all myths and legend that's synonymous with the full moon, and that's a werewolf. So I couldn't help but think to myself, is a werewolf actually surrounding or roaming through like these forests and these fields near my childhood home? And then so we hightailed it out of there. And I just remembered, as we were walking south back on across the field to get to the road to get back to my house, I was like afraid to look behind me, because I'm thinking to myself, what if a rabid beast starts running us down? What are we going to do? And then I'm thinking to myself, man, how terrifying would it be if that's like the last thing I've ever see is an actual like werewolf, and something I couldn't explain, and something that I didn't even think was real, that I thought was, just like I said, just a myth, just something for, scary stories and, movies and things like that. But we got back to the house, and, obviously we made it back there. Okay. Cause here I am today telling you this story. And, later on, down the road, when of course we kind of sort of, didn't think about this experience too much afterwards, but, like later on, it kind of came to mind again, and I kind of just started doing research, and I had come to find out that there's actually been several legends similar to what my friends and I had experienced that night, back in, the late 19th century. In Wexford County, Michigan, in kind of like the northwestern part of the state. I think it was Wexford County, might have been Wessex County, something like that. But there's been several sightings of a similar bipedal creature that looks like it has the body of a man but the head of a dog, and they called it the Michigan Dog Man. And there's been several other sightings throughout Michigan, reported sightings at least throughout the years. So I thought to myself, was that the creature that was that ran across the field that night? Was it this Michigan Dog Man? Was it something else? And now sometimes I can't even help, even today, whenever I visit my childhood home, I just can't help but think to myself, is there a monster lurking in those woods? Is like what ran across that field that night? Is it still there? Or is this some kind of like migratory creature that, finds its way? Or is it, just like most other animals that just once they settle to a place, they call it home for good? It's just, what was it? And I'm kind of like, I mean, I'm not sure I really, would want to see something like that again. But even now, it kind of sort of, it feels weird to be back home and to kind of think about that. And I've also even took a dove into some like werewolf myth and legends and things like that, and just trying to see where some of the lore comes from. And I found it rather interesting that different cultures around the world all had some sort of depiction of the werewolf in some way. Like I believe that, man changing at the light of the full moon into a wolf, lycanthropy that way. I believe that was French lore, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe the Germans also have a myth about the werewolves where magical items like belts can turn man into wolf. And then I also hear the story about the chupacabra, in Mexico. So yeah, all these different cultures around the world have some sort of depiction of the werewolf in some way. So what if this is just like another, just another rendition of that, in Michigan where I grew up. So it was an interesting evening to say the least. And, and again, it just sometimes just makes me wonder that whenever I visit my childhood home, what if there is something in those woods just lurking in the night, lurking in the shadows, maybe just watching and just waiting for me to be curious and want to venture out into those forests again. And that's my story, everyone, at least for this episode. So I hope you all enjoyed this spooky segment of Travel Reflections, taking it back to my home state of Michigan. And an interesting legend that has been around in my home state. So, yep, that's the tale of the Michigan Dog Man, and that's my story. Hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. I got a couple more of these stories coming out this month, and we're going to be taking it to some other places around the world for some more scary stories. And I also got some fantastic guest episodes coming up as well. So make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it so you don't miss a single episode. Also, if you like what you heard today, make sure you're subscribed to the I already talked about subscribe. Make sure you leave us a rating and review. Let us know what you think of the podcast. That'll get us trending higher, so that way more people can find it and get some value from it as well, and maybe will enjoy these stories too. And also, I want to thank you very much for being here today. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot going on, but it means so much to me that you've chosen to download this podcast and listen to my story today. And I greatly appreciate it, and I certainly don't take it for granted. And that's all I have to say for now, and I'll be back next week with a brand new guest episode, so be sure to check back in for that. But until then, this is the All Around Adventure Podcast. I'm Josh Guerrero, saying be safe, happy travels, and always move forward.